Today I will be talking about the mainstream psychological treatment that we use to treat anxiety and anxiety disorders. And in the past few weeks, I was giving you many different suggestions and different techniques on how you can actually deal with your anxieties. Because I believe that many of the anxieties that we deal with, they can be actually dealt with self-help materials and with relearning of how we think about ourselves, other people, our surroundings, without actually attending these long and costly psychological treatments. However, if you are someone who've already read many self-help materials, maybe you've watched a lot of YouTube videos around mental health, but it seems like nothing is really helping you, it might be a good idea to actually visit your GP or your family doctor. Then they will be able to support you with that and make the right referral for you. Whether you're dealing with anxiety on your own or whether you have specialists who's supporting you, it is very likely that you will have to be very patient before you will see a significant change in your life. I like to compare the process of healing our mental health to the process of developing a new healthy eating habit. So for instance, when we learn that sugar is bad for us, then we try to develop new, better ways of eating, avoiding sugar. So instead of maybe keeping biscuits at home to snack on, we will maybe start keeping nuts. So in a similar way, when we start noticing and learning that actually maybe certain ways how we think about ourselves, other people, our surroundings are outdated, that maybe we catastrophizing, then we start to develop new updated ways of thinking about everything. And these new learnings we will have to apply not only during the time when we are in therapy or while we are reading the self-help book, but that will be a lifelong process for us, as it is with the healthy eating. So whenever you go back to your unhealthy eating habits and you indulge eating sugar, your organs, your liver, for instance, they're gonna start suffering again. And hopefully with the help of therapy or with the help of the self-help material that you're using, you're gonna be able to actually identify what is actually causing you the issue and how to modify this or how to work with it. And also, what is really good about our brains, that the more you're gonna practice certain skill, so the more you're gonna practicing this new way of thinking, the more natural that's gonna become for you. So with time you're gonna actually not even pay much attention that you have to do this, you have to think that, you have to challenge this thought in a certain way, but that's gonna be a more natural way for you to think, same as you think in your very maybe catastrophizing way at the moment. Another really important aspect of attending therapy or maybe attending any self-help material is that you don't only work on learning new ways of thinking, but you also become much more self-aware. So at the moment, the most popular approach to deal with anxiety, it is the cognitive behavior therapy, which is CBT. This therapy was initiated by Aaron Beck. One of the ways how we work to help someone with anxiety using CBT is to help the person identify the negative views that they might be holding about themselves. So it could be something like I'm stupid or I'm worthless. Then we also help the person to identify negative views about the world. So it could be something like the world is hostile, is unpredictable, is dangerous. And then we're also gonna help the person to identify the thoughts and worries about the future, which predominantly they're gonna be catastrophic. They're gonna be white and black way of thinking, and they're gonna be lacking flexibility. And once we identify these negative thoughts and worries, then we help the person to actually start looking at those thoughts and worries in a more objective way. So we help the person to challenge some of maybe the beliefs that they hold. And how we can do this is by using Socratic questioning. So normally they're going to be open-ended questions that allow the person to actually reflect more on what they're thinking, what they believe. And also when attending CBT, you can expect that you're going to be engaging with behavior experiments, which are a really good way to help to resurface some of the negative beliefs and thoughts and worries. And then with your therapist, you will have a chance to actually reflect on these, to maybe challenge them and see what are the alternatives that might be more helpful for you in your current life. It is also quite likely that maybe when you're in therapy, you tackle some aspects of your anxiety, and then for the next maybe 2-3 years your life goes pretty smoothly and you're dealing with things in your life, but then something really major happens, and that actually activates maybe the same anxiety, or maybe activates anxiety, but maybe in a slightly different way than maybe you've experienced it before. It is very likely that once you are able to recognize the thinking patterns and your behavior patterns around anxiety, even though the anxiety might seem slightly different 2 or 3 years later, you're gonna be able to tackle it with the same techniques that you've learned in your therapy. A big part of CBT, whether you're doing it from self-help book or whether you're doing it in therapy, it is also about teaching you how to relax. And I know it sounds like something very straightforward, but it is not as simple, specifically for people who deal with anxiety. In the past few weeks, when I talk about different ways of dealing with anxiety, I also talked about different ways of how you can relax and how to make it as a habit. We all know that relaxation is good for us. We all need that for our health, for our healthy balance of living. But specifically with anxiety, relaxation is important because that allows us to have some separation from anxiety. It allows us to have some distance from anxiety. And then once we achieve that, then we can actually start developing more objective ways of thinking and looking at things. Because anxiety, it actually blurs everything, and it is very difficult to actually think objectively about ourselves, other people, our situations. Another aspect of a CBT in context of dealing with anxiety that is really different from other treatments is that CBT actually helps you to deal with your anxiety in a systemic way. So for instance, initially we will ask you to write down a list of maybe your fears. And obviously you're not going to have loads of them. They're going to be quite few. They're going to be quite repetitive. And then we're going to also ask you to score them. What's the thing that you fear the most? What is the thing that you fear the least? And then by having that, then we can start working on challenging that and maybe looking at those fear in a more objective way. Let's break down one fictional example of someone who's struggling with social anxiety and someone who've tried CBT. So let me introduce you to Lee, who struggles with low confidence, low self-esteem. In general, he doesn't think really well of himself, whether it is intellectually or physically. As a result of that, he stays most of the time at home. Whenever he can, he works from home. He really makes effort to not go out with friends or family. He avoids social situations not because he's happy in this way, but because he feels really anxious and uncomfortable when he's in social situations. And he's also judging himself for certain things that maybe he's saying, the way how he's behaving when he's with people. And then he's also worried that in the same way, other people, they're gonna judge him. Because of the high anxiety that Lee is experiencing, he's avoiding people. But then because of that, the interactions with people, they become even harder. So he's stuck in this vicious cycle of fear, and also of avoidance. In therapy, Lee starts actually paying more attention to his automatic negative thoughts, beliefs that he has about himself. So for instance, one of them is that he believes that he's not handsome, he thinks that he's not interesting. Lee also, he has these predictions and some rigidity in a way he thinks about other people. So he said that nobody likes me, people, they think I'm stupid. And if I was to present this project at work, people, they will laugh at me. Another unhelpful pattern of thinking that Lee developed over the years, it is his shoulds. So he would say, I should have known this, I should be better at this. And then we have also musts. So it's gonna be something like, I must be quiet, I must not speak. At this point, we can actually start helping Lee to see that actually the way he thinks about himself, other people, his surroundings, it is not the 100% truth. And we can start helping him to develop this more balanced way of thinking about himself and everyone else. So for instance, when he says that he will never achieve anything, we can put into perspective for him that actually he had actually really tough upbringing. So his parents, they got divorced, he was bullied at school, his father was also physically abusive towards him. But despite all of this, he still managed to do quite well at school. He managed to finish his degree, and also he secured a really good job position that he also enjoys. When we go to the next default way of thinking that Lee developed about himself, such as I'm not interesting, I'm boring, this is very certain, very final, I'm boring, right? So it's very this black or white way of thinking. But then with the help of the therapist, or maybe with the help of the self-help book, you can start actually developing this more middle ground way of thinking about yourself. It is expected that Lee, he's not gonna seem interesting to everyone, and that's completely fine. So maybe he's not gonna be able to engage in a long conversation about vintage cars. Maybe he doesn't know nothing about vintage cars, but that's completely fine, because we can actually help Lee to come up with a list of the things that he could talk about. So they're gonna be things that he enjoys doing, maybe certain hobbies that he has, things that he's interested in. And hopefully that will then allow Lee to see that actually he can share certain perspective and certain ideas with people. So using CBT techniques, the therapist initially will help Lee to see that actually some of these thinking patterns and his behavior patterns are actually harmful to him, and show him that maybe in the past at some point some of these ways of thinking and behaving, maybe they were helping him, maybe they were protecting him, but maybe now in his current life, maybe they're actually quite outdated. When Lee was at school and when he was having this belief that I'm not interesting, he was sitting quietly, so he was not drawing as much attention into himself. So it is very likely that because of this belief and because of his behavior, he at the time actually maybe avoided being bullied even more. And now Lee, he works with professionals, he's an adult, so he can stand up for himself when someone crosses his boundaries. And obviously, as a kid, he was not able to do that. I hope that now you can see how the validity of certain negative thoughts or maybe certain beliefs and certain behaviors can actually change over time. So this is how we could start working with those thoughts that are generating anxiety, and then we could move on to behavior aspect of CBT. We would help Lee to come up with a list of the situations that he's fearing. So we would ask him to start with the things that maybe he fears the least and finishing with those situations that he fears the most. So Lee, he's saying that saying hi to his neighbor is the least fear. Then going to the shop and asking the shop assistant to help him find some product, that would be the next one. Having a lunch together with a co-worker, that would be the next one on the list. The things that he's fearing the most is going for the Christmas party with his work colleagues. So when we're starting working on the behavioral aspects, we have to choose one situation that is causing the fear to the person. So it could be, for instance, Lee going to the shop and asking the shopkeeper where is a specific product. So when preparing this, we would help Lee to actually plan the whole behavior experiment. So when he's gonna go, at what time, which shop, what he's gonna ask for, even what he's gonna wear. And all this preparation and all this planning is really important, because that can actually give the sense to the person that the task is more achievable, is predictable, and that they have the sense of control as well. When doing those sort of behavior experiments, with time we would expect to increase difficulty of those experiments. Another thing that we need to plan in context of behavior experiments is the grounding techniques that can help the person to relax before the experiments and also after. What is also helpful as part of those behavior experiments, it is to track your anxiety level. So initially, before leaving to the shop, Lee, he might be feeling anxious 9 out of 10. And then maybe on the way back home, he might be feeling already 6 out of 10. And then as well, the more he's gonna practice that, he will actually see decrease in anxiety, so that can then serve as a motivation. While planning the experiments, we also talk about the fact that those experiments might not go as perfectly as planned, but that's all right. Those experiments might resurface, for instance, certain negative assumptions, but again, that's part of the work, and that's completely fine, because even if something resurfaces, that actually gives us an opportunity to reflect on that, to challenge it, and maybe see from a different perspective. As you can see, the process of dealing with your mental health is not a linear process, and it's really something ongoing. So even though you might be in therapy and then things that might go really well and you feel like now the anxiety has gone really down and you know how to deal with it, then again there might be something in your life that will happen that will trigger the anxiety for you. But that's all right, because by being more self-aware, you're gonna be able to actually recognize that maybe I need more time for myself, maybe I just need to take a break so that I can reflect on the things that are happening in my life, so I can deal with it in a different way than maybe I dealt with in the past. That will be it for today, and if you enjoyed this video, then please like it, subscribe, and I'm gonna see you in the next one then. Thank you, bye bye.